wanted to enjoy his creation, to enjoy him. And he created them to do the same thing in the spiritual world. So there's a symbiotic relationship going on. You know, we know what happens to it. It all blows up. But this is God's intent. This is what he wants. And what that means is that the heavenly world, the unseen realm, is actually in biblical thinking a template for how God looks at his human family. This is why both families are spoken of the same way.
Right, makes
in
sense.
Both testaments. Yeah. I mean, this is why, you know, that you have these parallels, this as in heaven, so on earth thing going on in the Bible. This is intentional. It shows, it's a reflection of what God wanted from the very beginning. And the world is the chaotic mess that it is because we don't have just one rebellion that's a problem, Genesis 3, the Garden of Eden, the serpent and all that. We have three. We have Genesis 3, we have Genesis 6, 1 through 5, and we have what happened at Babel.
Right, but why do we always just think of Genesis 3? We just think of Adam and Eve, the only problem.
Since the 4th century AD, the church has taught its people to not see anything supernatural going on in Genesis 6, 1 through 5. Even though sons of God everywhere else is supernatural beings. Oh no, they're just people. It's the sons of Seth. Or it's like divine kings or like human kings that think they're divine. Or I mean, we basically go through hermeneutical gymnastics to make Genesis 6, 1 through 5 not say what it says. And the reason is because really of the influence of Augustine, some would pronounce his name as. Up until the days of Augustine, again, 4th century AD, the Jewish community, the Christian community all saw Genesis 6, 1 through 5 as a transgression of heaven and earth. Supernatural beings either literally cohabiting with human women and producing, you know, Nephilim and all this weird stuff, or the language there was designed to make us understand that supernatural beings raised up their own, you know, human families as rivals to Israel and Yahweh's family. You know, either one of those. But there was a supernatural rebellion going on there. Well, Augustine didn't like that view, and he was a towering figure in the early church, and he rejected it, and basically the church has followed suit ever since. Nowadays, the human view, or some sort of human view of Genesis 6, 1 through 5, is the dominant view within the Christian church. The original ancient view, which is the only view supported by the actual context to Genesis 6, 1 through 5, which I mentioned in Unseen Realm, the Mesopotamian Apkallu story, which matches every point of Genesis 6, 1 through 5. Every point. And I developed that more in Demons and Reversing Hermon, another book. But everybody ignores that. Now, again, this is not an exaggeration. I worked at Logos Bible Software, so I got all their stuff for free. I have 20,000 volumes, okay, in digital. I found the word Apkallu in 2 sources prior to 2010. That's an important date for a reason. In other words, I found 2 commentaries of all the scholarly commentaries that have been published, okay? Only 2 even mention the word. They don't deal with the stuff, with the story. They just mention the word, literally. The only exceptions to that, again, in non-digital, is a journal article by Ann Kilmer and a book by Helga Kvanvig, who's a Dutch or Swedish scholar. But until 2010, nobody had taken the time, no academic had taken the time to go through all the Mesopotamian information with a simple question. Is there data here, are there data here that match Genesis 6, 1 through 5, the sons of God, the Nephilim, the giant stuff? And there is. It was published in 2010 in an article by Amar Anus, which people can get on my website. It's linked, I have it linked there. It's available online. So, you know, it's like either there was complete unawareness of the ancient Near Eastern parallel to this, the ancient Near Eastern context, The writer of Enoch certainly knew it because he gets into the material. And that's where Peter and Jude ultimately, get it too, because, Jude refers and Peter to the angels that sinned, angels plural, at the time of the flood. There's only one candidate for that, and that's Genesis 6, 1-5.
Exactly.
Okay, they're getting it from somewhere, and they understand its meaning, but for the Christian church, like, nope, we can't see anything supernatural here because that's too weird. And then the third one, the Babel story, we're never taught that because basically we have translations that instead of the nations being divided according to the number of the sons of God, most English translations have the nations being divided according to the children, the sons of Israel, which makes no sense at all. You don't have to be a textual critic and know that they're not using the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is the best text. I mean, that's all true. But even if you don't know that, it makes no sense because Israel didn't exist yet. Israel's not listed in the table of nations because Israel only gets started after Babel with Abraham.
Right.
What could be more obvious? But this is, so we're taught to not see the second rebellion, Genesis 6, and we can't get to the third one because of these textual issues. So we're handicapped out of the gate, and you ask, why is this important? Well, I'll tell you why. On the one hand, of course, if you don't know any of this, you can still understand the gospel. Of course. I did.
Right, I did too.
As a teenager, I did. You don't need any of this to understand the gospel. But if you believe this thing that you call the Bible is the word of God, I mean, just let that ring in your head, word of God. Okay, if you actually believe that, you might want to understand it better.